The 2nd of February, 1943, Stalingrad, the Soviet Union. The German Sixth Army, after 5 months of fierce fighting and heavy casualties, having exhausted their ammunition and food, finally capitulates, making it the first of Hitler's field armies to surrender during World War II. The battle for the city proves a decisive psychological turning point, ending a string of German victories in the summer of 1942 and beginning the long retreat westward. As the remnants of the Sixth Army lay down their arms, tens of thousands of German soldiers become prisoners of war, facing harsh conditions and uncertain fates in Soviet captivity. Out of 91,000 captured German soldiers, only 5,000 to 6,000 will return to Germany after the war, and the rest will die. Among those who will never come back from Soviet captivity is a colonel general who belongs to one of the most fanatical supporters of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime. His name is Walter Heitz. Walter Heitz was born on the 8th of December 1878 in Berlin, then part of the German Empire. In 1899, he joined the Prussian army, and when the First World War started on the 28th of January 1914, Heitz, in the rank of captain, was a regimental adjutant of the 36th Field Artillery Regiment. He became a battery commander and battalion commander, and from 1915 Heitz fought in East Prussia on the Russian front, and then, till the end of the war in 1918, on the Western Front. During the war, in addition to both classes of the Iron Cross, the Wounded Badge in Black, and the Prussian Service Cross, he also received the Knight's Cross of the Royal House Order of Hohenzollern with swords and the Hamburg Hanseatic Cross. After the end of the First World War, Walter Heitz, together with many other Germans, was dismayed by the harsh conditions imposed on their country by the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty, signed on the 28th of June 1919, placed Germany under strict restrictions that deeply affected its economy, military, and sense of sovereignty. Forced to accept full responsibility for the war, Germany faced enormous reparations payments to the Allied powers, which strained an already weakened economy. Additionally, Germany lost valuable territories, including Alsace-Lorraine, which was rich in coal and iron ore, as well as all overseas colonies, leading to widespread resentment. The treaty also imposed severe military restrictions limiting Germany's army to 100,000 troops, prohibiting submarines, an air force, and conscription. In the new Weimar Republic, which was the name given to the government of Germany from 1918 to 1933, Walter Heitz continued his career as a professional soldier. In the reduced German army, the Reichswehr, he eventually became the commander of Fortress Königsberg in late 1931 and achieved the rank of colonel. By this time, he was already a staunch supporter of Nazism. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, and 2 days later, Walter Heitz was promoted to Major General. On the 1st of August 1936, he was appointed the President of the Reich Military Court, Nazi Germany's highest military court, and in less than a year he was promoted to General of the Artillery. In 1938, during Heitz's tenure as President of the Reich Military Court, undermining military force was introduced into military law, criminalizing criticism and dissent against Nazi leadership, including acts like conscientious objection, defeatist statements, and self-mutilation. Punishments included death, imprisonment, concentration camps, or forced deployment. In 1939, the law was extended to civilians. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Heitz, already 60 years old, was expected to retire. Despite this, he insisted on being sent to the front lines, and on the 14th of September, partly due to his intense animosity towards the Poles, he was appointed commander of the armed forces in Reichsgau, Danzig, West Prussia. The province's capital was Danzig, today's Polish Gdansk, and in 1939, its population without the city was 1,487,452. Heitz expressed enthusiasm, declaring that he would rule the area with a mailed fist, and criticized the combat troops under his command as being over-inclined towards a false sense of chivalry. His tenure in Danzig, West Prussia, however, was brief, lasting only 4 weeks. Heitz was then appointed as the commanding general of the 8th Army Corps and led his troops in the invasion of France. The German invasion of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands started on the 10th of May 1940 and became known as the Battle of France. These countries, along with France, were conquered within 6 weeks. Following the successful campaign in France, Hitler set his sights on the east. On Sunday, the 22nd of June 1941, under the code name Operation Barbarossa, Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union, its ally in the war against Poland. Heitz continued to command the 8th Army Corps during this operation, and his soldiers took part in the Battle of Białystok, Minsk. According to the terms of the German-Soviet Pact of 1939, Bialystok, a city in northeastern Poland, was assigned to the Soviet zone of occupation. Soviet forces entered Białystok in September 1939 and held it until June 1941 when the German army came. In his position, Walter Heitz was responsible for the crimes that subsequently took place in the city, which the Germans entered on the 27th of June 1941. On that day, the German soldiers and members of the Police Battalion 309 went on a mission to search the Jewish districts to capture remnants of the Red Army and hostile elements. But the operation took a brutal turn due to the intensely anti-Semitic views of certain officers and non-commissioned officers. What started as a search of the city escalated into a massacre. First, Jewish men and boys were forcibly taken from streets and homes and were subjected to severe beating and humiliation. The policemen forced them to dance and sing religious songs. There were also cases of setting fire to the beards of Orthodox Jews, and some others were forced to shout, "I am Jesus Christ." A group of Jews went to the headquarters of the 221st Security Division to beg its commander for intervention. However, when they fell to their knees, General Johann Flugbeil turned his back and the policeman present at the headquarters urinated on them. Elsewhere, a certain police officer expressed disapproval of his colleague's conduct, only to be told in response, "You don't seem to have received the right ideological training yet." Some were executed in their homes or on the streets, whilst others were taken to execution sites on the outskirts of the city. Mass executions occurred, notably in the park surrounding the Branitzky Palace, and the policemen also murdered the patients in the Jewish hospital. These mass executions persisted into the night, carried out under parking lights. The most significant massacre occurred at the Great Synagogue, where German policemen herded hundreds of captured Jews, alongside several others, including women, children, and elderly, who were seeking refuge there. The policemen sealed the synagogue doors and formed a double cordon around the building. They brought in trucks carrying barrels of petrol, pouring the contents over the walls. In the evening, Lieutenant Schneider ordered the synagogue to be set ablaze, using hand grenades to ignite the fire. Policemen shot those attempting to escape through the windows, including children lifted by their parents in desperate attempts for mercy. Around 700 to 800 people were burnt alive in the Great Synagogue. However, this was not the end. The grenades' explosions spread the fire to neighboring buildings. Jews fleeing the flames were killed by the policemen, and Major Weiss only ordered firefighting efforts when the fire endangered the battalion's vehicles. Houses were blown up to contain the blaze, resulting in the deaths of those inside. Estimates vary regarding the number of Jews murdered in the city, but approximately 2,000 to 3,000 Jews from Białystok were killed by German police and the Wehrmacht soldiers on the 27th of June 1941. However, this too was not the end. Estimates suggest that at the turn of June and July 1941, the Nazis murdered between 6.5 and 7,000 Jews in Białystok. On the 1st of August 1941, the remaining Jews were confined to the newly established Białystok ghetto. In August 1941, Heitz and his corps participated in the First Battle of Smolensk in Russia. They were then sent to Paris in France for occupation duty, only to be later reassigned to the Eastern Front with the rest of the Sixth Army, commanded by Friedrich Paulus, in Stalingrad. The Battle of Stalingrad, which began in August 1942, soon descended into a bitter, street-by-street fight, with neither side willing to concede an inch of ground. At its height, the German Sixth Army had over 300,000 soldiers committed to the fight for Stalingrad. These troops were supported by artillery, tanks, and air support, but the Red Army's tenacious defense neutralized much of the German advantage. The Soviet strategy, which included relentless counterattacks and the clever use of the city's ruins as natural fortifications, forced the Germans into a costly and exhausting battle of attrition. As the situation in Stalingrad deteriorated for the Germans, Heitz ordered the defeatists and any man attempting surrender to be shot, coining the slogan, "We fight to the last bullet, but one." In contrast, other generals, such as Walter von Seydlitz-Kurzbach, had already granted their regimental and battalion commanders permission to act and surrender independently, based on local conditions. On the 25th of January 1943, Seydlitz released his divisional commanders to decide for themselves whether to surrender, prompting Paulus to relieve him of his command and place all of Seydlitz's divisions under Heitz. Days later, when Seydlitz and over a dozen other officers fled the German lines to surrender, German machine gun fire targeted them. Seydlitz later claimed that 2 German officers were mortally wounded as a result of Heitz's apocalyptic order. On the 29th of January 1943, Heitz issued the following directive. Whoever surrenders will be shot. Whoever displays the white flag will be shot. Whoever does not immediately deliver bread or sausages dropped by our pilots will be shot. Even as late as the 31st of January, German soldiers attempting to surrender were executed under Heitz's orders. On the 29th of January, Heitz had stated that he would seek the death of a soldier while defending his command post. He later attempted suicide, but was stopped by his chief of staff. On the 30th of January 1943, Heitz received a promotion to Colonel General, which he had been denied before, probably because of his age. A day later, Heitz surrendered the central pocket of German forces, and by the 2nd of February 1943, all of the rest of the Sixth Army, regarded as the best field army in the Wehrmacht, surrendered. At the time of his surrender, Heitz was the second highest-ranking German officer captured by the Allies, ranking only behind Paulus. In contrast to the other generals, he turned up in the prisoner of war camp with a large amount of personal luggage. While in captivity, he adamantly refused to collaborate with the anti-fascist National Committee for a Free Germany, which was based in the Soviet Union, and even threatened to beat its members. Despite severe pressure from the Soviets, including beatings and threats against his family, Heitz remained uncooperative. On the 8th of April 1943, a censorship error at the Foreign Letter Inspection Office in Vienna allowed mail from Heitz to reach his wife, providing her with proof of his survival. This incident undermined the official propaganda of the heroic death of the German soldiers at Stalingrad. After a year in captivity, the 65-year-old Heitz died of cancer in Moscow on the 9th of February 1944 and was buried in Krasnogorsk. Heitz, a fanatical Nazi and a tough military commander, responsible for the deaths of many civilians, as well as his own soldiers, was never brought to justice for his crimes. There were no tears shed for Walter Heitz.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.